first week, we looked at this big idea that less is more. Say, less is more. The second week, we looked at this big idea, stress is bad. Say, stress is bad. It's very bad. Last week, we looked at this big idea, giving is good. Say, giving is good. We believe it. Tell your face that. Number 4, this week, we're talking about tomorrow matters. Say, tomorrow matters. Woo, tomorrow matters. Okay, super pumped about this conversation. It's been like in me all week, and I'm just so pumped. I'm going to try to slow down how fast I talk for you, okay? All right, breathing in. All right, here we go. As we talk about tomorrow matters, everybody in the room, I think, believes that, right? Like, we'd all like to make it to tomorrow. And if we had the choice, if tomorrow was better than today, we'd also be excited about that, right? Okay, so we understand that tomorrow matters. The ironic thing is we get stuck not living like it, would you say? We have this instant gratification like culture that we live in, and so we get stuck living in today, and sometimes I think we forget that tomorrow matters, not because we intentionally do it, but we kind of get robbed by this instant gratification conversation. So let me give you an example just so you can relate with me. If you're a close friend with me and I send you a text, like within 3 seconds, I expect to see the little bubbles popping up on my phone. You know what I'm saying? Like instant gratification, like if we're good friends, you should respond to me immediately because that's what I've been conditioned to expect. And if you don't, then you can ask all my friends, right? I start sending like all the gifts of hilarious, where the heck are you? Why aren't you responding? Did you die? That's the culture that we live in. We live in a society right now where like when we binge watch stuff, we get mad when it buffers, right? So not only are we grateful, by the way, did you notice that Netflix introduced a skip intro button? For all of you that don't have time to waste on an intro when you're binge watching, right? So not only are you getting into the new season of Walking Dead, but then you can skip the intro because nobody got time for that, and then we get to do it. But if it buffers, right, no way. We're going to throw the router out the window. We're gonna call our cable company. It's a big deal. We also live in the Amazon world now, right? And so free 2-day shipping has absolutely changed the way that we live our lives, right? And honestly, how many of you are like, 2 days is a little long, Amazon? Like, right, how many of you guys ever ordered something on a Friday and it turns out being like 3 days because you lose a business day? You're like, that doesn't count. It shouldn't work like that. You said 2 days, and they don't care, but this is how you feel, right? All right, so biggest challenge when it comes to this idea that tomorrow matters is that we get stuck in instant gratification. Now, a couple weeks ago, I shared that in America today, 78% of our population is living paycheck to paycheck. So just right now today, 4 out of 5 people in the room, we're living paycheck to paycheck. And listen, I realize like for some people that's a huge accomplishment, right? Like if you live in Boulder, that might be like making ends meet, and like that's a huge win to celebrate every week or every month that you made it, right? So I'm not trying to downplay the reality that a single mom working for her kids to provide for her family, or just that things are tight when we live paycheck to paycheck. That's not what I'm talking about. But let's be honest, the majority of the American population doesn't have to live that way. Would you agree? Right? And it's not that their money's not obligated. It's that we choose lifestyles that obligate us to live paycheck to paycheck. It's the car payment that we got, and the bigger house that we got, and the credit card debt that we're paying off, and the school debt, and all of a sudden we're living paycheck to paycheck, but the question is, do you have to live that way? Maybe right now you do, but the answer is, right, we don't have to live that way. So, again, as we have this conversation today, I think what happens is we get stuck just trying to survive today or living in the instant gratification of the moment that we forget tomorrow matters. And so what happens when we fail to act like it? Let me give you a few examples, okay? Here's the big idea for today in case you're taking notes. This is for you. When we recognize that tomorrow matters, it's going to change the way we live today. When we recognize that tomorrow matters, it should change the way that we live today. And what we're talking about today is the big idea of investing our lives into those around us. And so let me give you some examples. My wife Danielle and I have been married for 9 years on Tuesday, I think. Whoa, that's crazy, right? 9 years. And the way I invest in Danielle today determines the marriage I have tomorrow. Are you with me? Or would you agree, right? The marriage that I want tomorrow depends on how I treat her today. The relationship that I want with my kids tomorrow. And listen, hopefully you're with me on this, but when we're talking about tomorrow, I'm not talking about only tomorrow. I'm talking about the tomorrow in 5 years, the tomorrow in 20 years, right? Apply to tomorrow to all of our tomorrows, okay? But the relationship I want with my kids tomorrow hinges on how I invest in them today, right? The relationship that I want with my friends tomorrow, the lifelong friendships that I want, like real friendships, like lay your life down for each other friendships that I want tomorrow, depends on the friendships I'm cultivating today. The retirement, like no joke, right? The retirement that I want tomorrow hinges on the investments I make today, does it not? Like no brainer, right? The financial security, being able to get away from living paycheck to paycheck tomorrow, depends on the choices I make with what I have today. The generosity that I want to extend to those around me with my time, my energy, and my resources tomorrow depends on how I manage what I have today. Listen to this. This is funny. As I was thinking about it, the planet that I want to enjoy tomorrow depends on the choices that I make today, right? Reusable cups, reusable straws. It's the world we live in, right? We're trying to make some noise about it. And I think it's worth thinking about. The planet that I want my kids to have tomorrow depends on the way we choose to live today. The church that I want to be a part of tomorrow, the one that's making a difference in our city and seeing incredible things happen through the way that God is using us, depends on the investments that we make today. The career that I want tomorrow depends on the work that I put into it today, whether it's through trade school or investing or whatever, right? We realize how this works, right? No one's like shocked no one's like mind blown right now. Like, I had no idea that I was supposed to be doing it. But last one, just because this is the most important one. The abs that I want tomorrow depend on the crunches that I do today, right? Actually, no, that's a lie. Everybody knows that abs are made in the kitchen, okay? So if you got nothing else from today, that's what you got, okay? So that's the general side of things, okay? That's the general, like, listen, if you're not a follower of Jesus in the room, there's just a generic benefit to paying attention to how we live today for tomorrow, right? But there's also a spiritual side that I want to talk to you about and invite you into. And so this is from Paul. It's going to be on the screen. This is 1 Timothy chapter 6. There's a guy named Paul. He was a Christian killer, super religious, ran into Jesus, changed his life, becomes a Jesus follower, becomes a church planter and a pastor, and now he's investing in this younger guy named Timothy, trying to help him as he leads another church that they planted, okay? So here's some of the instructions that he gives to this guy named Timothy. He says, teach those that you're leading, who are rich in this world. By the way, just can we agree that we're all rich in the room, okay? Given the world standard of living, I realize we live in America, and if you're paying rent in Boulder, you might not feel like it, but given the condition of the world around us, we could all consider ourselves rich materially pretty easily, okay? Those who are rich in this world, not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable, but rather their trust should be in God, who richly gives us all we need for our enjoyment. Okay, so he's just saying, just a big backtrack, but watch what happens next. Tell them to use their money to do good. They should be rich in good works and generous to those in need, always being ready to share with others. By doing this, they're going to be storing up, watch this, storing up treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they might experience true life. Now listen, before you get stuck on the reality that we're talking about money, we're not talking about just money, okay? Realize that Paul has given us a bigger conversation of lifestyle generosity. That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about investing all of our lives into what matters most. And he says, hey, use your money to do good, but also be rich in what? In good works, and generous to those in need, and then being ready, having a plan to share with others. And so don't get stuck on the money conversation. This is way, way bigger than that. But what does he say? He says that when you do this, this is so interesting. By doing this, you'll store up some treasure as a good foundation for the future so that they might experience true life. He's echoing the words of Jesus, okay? This is crazy to me. He remembers Jesus saying, because he's been taught this, Jesus said, hey, don't store up treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy, and Colorado, salt on the road rust your brand new car, right? Don't store up treasure on earth, but store up treasure in heaven. And if you're like me, you're like, okay, so how do I apply for that bank account? If I could just start investing now for later, that would be super helpful to know, right? I think we understand he's not talking about a treasure that's material, right? So what is he talking about? This is amazing to me. Jesus is helping us understand that not only are our wallets and our hearts connected, but bigger than that, what we're investing in now matters later. So let me ask you a question. What lasts forever? Just think about it for a moment. What lasts forever? There's only two things that last forever. Me and you. Wow, right? Oh my goodness. And so the only reason, hear me on this is the big idea today. The only reason that tomorrow matters is because of the people that are going to be there with you. The only reason tomorrow matters is because of the people that are going to be there with you, both literal, right? Hopefully we're cultivating relationships in this life that we get to enjoy, but also eternal. Right? There's a reality that we're not just physical beings, we're spiritual, and we get to enjoy not only life now, but life forever with a God who loves us. And so when he says, hey, store up treasure in heaven, what's he talking about? He's talking about people. He's talking about using our lives to invest in people so that we're not standing there by ourselves, right? That we actually have something to celebrate. He says true life and joy is found in this. What is he talking about? This treasure is first knowing Jesus. Hear me, friends. This is mind-blowing. The most incredible treasure, Jesus even told a story about it, that you and I can find is a relationship with Jesus. Like, ask any follower of Jesus in the room, and they're going to tell you, man, Jesus has radically changed my life, and he's the best, and it's awesome, and I love all these new friends that we have that are meeting Jesus, and they have the same story. True life and true joy are found first in knowing Jesus, but get this. And then it's found and we find joy in helping others get to know Jesus. Like, they go hand in hand. And so Mark Driscoll says it this way. He says, hey, you can't take what you have with you, but you can send it on ahead by the way that you invest in people. So what we're talking about is leveraging our lives for more than our stuff at the end of the day. What are we going to have to show for it when it comes to our relationships at the end of our life? And so here's what I want to encourage you with. Our goal today in this conversation is we want to live and love in such a way that people experience the life and the love of Jesus working in and through us. Bella is one of my new friends, and we had dinner with her this week. So glad you're here. And she got to share her story, and she became a Christian like a year ago, right? And so she's sharing her story. Guys, this is amazing. She was doing some athletics and working with some other athletes, and she was around this one girl, and she's sharing her story, and she's like, man, this girl was just different. Like the way she lived, the way she loved, it was just, something was different about her. And Bella grew up Catholic, and so she'd like been around the idea of God, but never had a relationship with Jesus. And so she's watching this girl, and at one point they get to have a dialogue and a conversation, and I think Bella used these words, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but she said, I see, it's like God is in you. And Bella shared at the table, she said, I didn't think that was available to me. Like what she had was awesome, and I loved experiencing it as she loved me and served me, but I didn't think it was available. And then as she shared that with her friend said, listen, what I have I got from Jesus, and you can have it too. And so Bella becomes a Christian. Now I'm like mind blown as I'm hearing her story at our kitchen table. Why? Because someone was simply living and loving as a Jesus follower, and Bella got to see that working in and through them, and then they became a Jesus follower. How exciting is that? Like, imagine that was your life, that the way that you love and live today is making a huge impact in the world around you. And so today, Jesus gives us a story about investing, and I'm going to talk to you about this big idea. If tomorrow matters. Which it does, because people matter. If tomorrow matters, then we've got to invest today like we believe it. So Jesus starts this parable in Matthew chapter 25. It'll be on the screen for you. And he says, the kingdom of heaven is like. And I want you to just pause for a moment. Anytime Jesus tells a story, he's going to insert himself into the story. He's going to be one of the characters. You and I are going to be one of the characters. And he tells the story to give us a spiritual principle. And he starts by saying the kingdom of heaven is like. And that might be weird language to you if you're not a follower of Jesus. You haven't been around the Bible much. But let me give you an interpretation of what Jesus is saying here. Anytime he says that, the kingdom of heaven, just simply defined, is when Jesus gets his way. And so Jesus, when he went to his followers, they said, hey, can you teach us how to pray? And he said, yeah, pray like this. Your kingdom in heaven be like that on earth. What he's saying is God gets his way in heaven, right? And so when he gets his way here on earth in and through us, that's the kingdom of heaven in real time. And so when Jesus came and he lived a perfect life and he died on the cross and he was buried and he rose again, proving he was God and then offering new life to anyone who would trust in him, he began the process of the kingdom of heaven coming to earth. And the kingdom of heaven is not something happening out there, friends. It's something that Jesus wants to talk about happening in here. When Jesus gets his way in my life, when Jesus gets his way through my life, that's the kingdom of heaven in real time. So when Bella gets to see her friend loving and living like Jesus, she experienced the kingdom of heaven in real time. Jesus was getting his way. So my question for you and I is, what does it look like for the kingdom of heaven to come to Boulder, to come to our workspace, to come to our neighborhood, to come in our friend circles, right? You don't have to get weird about it, right? Don't think like little fat babies in diapers are going to come down and start like playing harps, and right? It doesn't have to be weird, right? With these weird ideas of heaven. No, it's just when Jesus gets his way. Now listen, because Jesus is good and because he is God, his way is better than our way. It's genuinely better for us and those around us. And so here's what I want to encourage you with is you and I have the potential to carry that reality that Jesus is about to talk about into the world around us. The reason he's telling us this is because he wants to see this reality work in and through us. And so watch this. The kingdom of heaven is like a man going on a journey. Later he's going to be referred to as the master. So this is Jesus in the story, okay? Who called his servants and he entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, which is a measure of money. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? We're not talking about spitting plates here, although I guess we could, but it's a measure of money. He gave another 2 talents, and to another he gave 1, each according to his ability. And then he went away. On the next slide, he goes on, and it says that he who had received the 5 talents went, and at once he traded them, and he made 5 more. And then the one who had 2 talents made 2 more talents, but the one who had received the 1 talent, he went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, because this is a really long parable, I'm not going to put all the slides. Basically what happens is the master comes back and he brings his servants back and he says, hey, let's give an account of what you did with my money. And so the 5 shows up and says, hey, master, I got 5 more with what you gave me. And he says, well done. And the 2's like, hey, I got 2 more. And he says, well done. And then here's what happens to the guy who has 1. I'll show you on the screen. The guy who has 1 says, hey, I had it and I hid it because I didn't want to lose it. So I was kind of, afraid of what you might do. So here's your money back in full. But the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. Some strong language, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. You ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was mine with interest. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. One more. And then I got excited to the next point. Next verse. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. To those who use well what they're given, even more will be given, and they'll have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Okay, a couple of principles. I'm going to give you 3 principles for investing our life in the lives around us, okay? 3 ways to make a difference in the lives around us. 3 ways to leverage our time, our energy, and our resources to see life change on the other side, to make sure that tomorrow matters. 3 things to do today that affect tomorrow, okay? 3 principles of investing from this parable. Number 1, you ready? Are you ready? You guys excited? I am so excited. Number 1, we are managers, not owners. If you're taking notes, this is for you, you type A people. I got you. Don't worry. For those of you that can't remember anything, I'll give you one big thing to remember at the end, okay? We are managers, not owners. Go back to verse 14 here. Let me show you. In verse 14, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. You with me? The master gave his stuff to the servants to invest, okay? Over and over again, if you read the New Testament, you follow the life of Jesus, we get this big principle that everything we have is from God. And listen, I realize not everyone in the room is a follower of Jesus, and so you're like, I don't know about that. That's okay. You don't have to believe it to hear it, okay? But get with me on this. There's a big conversation that every good gift, the brother of Jesus said every good gift that we have is from God. The air that we're breathing, the sun that we feel on our skin, these awesome mountains that we get to run around in, the water that we get to drink, and then the lives that we live, the relationships that we have, it's all a gift. And so when it comes to this conversation of investing, one of the amazing things that a follower of Jesus gets to do is step back and say, hold on, okay, everything that I have is from him, and so it's not really mine to start with. And so if I'm a manager, not an owner, then I have a way less hard time figuring out where I'm going to invest. Why? Because I can just go to the owner and say, what do you want to do with your stuff? Right? Does this make sense to you? If it's not my stuff, then I'm not as attached to it. If it's not my time, if it's not my energy, if it's not my house, if it's not my car, if it's not my hands and my feet and my talents and my gifts, then I can just go to the master and say, hey, what do you want to do with your stuff? And part of this conversation is maybe you're wondering, okay, so what does the master want? If Jesus is the master and it's all his, let's just assume, I don't believe it necessarily, but let's just assume that it's all Jesus's, then what does he want? And some of you, I think this is where religion likes to creep in, and it tries to get in here and provide this list of religious things that you and I should do with our time, energy, and resources. And I want you to know that couldn't be further from what Jesus wants for you. Because religion kind of sneaks in here, and it's about kind of lifting up our pride and our works and how awesome we are. But Jesus comes back and he actually simplifies the entire conversation. He says, you know what I want you to do with your life? You know what I want you to do with your stuff? I want you to love God and people. That's it. That's all I want you to do. right? And for the record, in case you're not a follower of Jesus in the room, Jesus invites us to love God, not because we have to like work ourselves up and get in good standing with him. He invites us to love him because he first loved us. So the motivation is different. I'm not like living in a way to make God happy with me, so hopefully I don't get, lit like a match at the end of my life, but rather I get to come into this relationship with God, not because I deserve it, nor that I earned it, but rather because Jesus paid for it with his life. And so I get to love God simply because he loved me first. Right, guys, that's the reason I became a Christian at 15 years old. I didn't grow up in church, go around church. I heard about the love of God, that he loved me first. He loved me when I didn't give him a thought. He loved me when I could care less about him, and he gave Jesus to die for me anyway. I'm like, this is amazing. And all of a sudden, I want this relationship. Jesus died to give me a relationship with God. I don't have to play church. I don't have to follow a list of rules. I can hold my girlfriend's hand. Yes, right? I don't know what it is for you. I can drink a beer. Yes, right? And still love Jesus. Yes. It's my kind of Jesus. I knew it when he turned water into wine. He was trying to tell us something, right? And so you get into this. It's not as religious as you feel like it is because Jesus invites us into a relationship. Now, how ironic is it that the two things that last forever, Jesus tells us to invest in? Not just me and you, but God and me. And God and you, and God and your neighbor, and God and your coworker, and the person you ran into at Safeway, and the barista that you get your coffee from, right? How ironic is it that the things he tells us to invest in are the only things that last forever? So now we figure it out. So, Jesus, what do you want to do with my life? Oh, it's actually not as hard as I thought it was. It's simple. Now, let me give you some real examples because we can get motivated and not do anything about it. And so, let's just talk about your money because I like to make you mad, okay? So, your money, right? Literally, God, what do you want me to do with it? It's not mine. If it's yours, what do you want me to do with it? So, listen, I'm not a financial investment advisor, okay? A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this guy named Dave Ramsey. He's on the screen here for you. If you circle the letter F on your connection card, we have a super helpful resource we'd love to help you with. If you want to learn how to manage what you have, then this is the way to go. This guy's way smarter than I am. Super, super helpful. But the point is living in a way, managing what we have so that we can only manage what we have well in our lives, but then be blessing to others. And it's really, really simple. So if you're interested in FPU, the Financial Peace University tool, circle F on your connection card. We'll get it to you. It's a super helpful tool. But the big idea is this. I heard it not too long ago. Some of us, if we're trying to leverage the money aspect of our lives, that we can embrace this idea of the 10-10-80 rule. The 10-10-80 rule. And the 10-10-80 rule goes like this. Invest 10%, give 10%, and then live off of 80. Now, some of you are like, that's not possible ever, but it might be at some point. Jesus didn't say that, by the way. That's just somebody that's smart that said, hey, here's a way to manage your life, right? And so I'm not a guru, right? But listen, if you want to be 65 and retire and actually have something to live off of, you should make investments today, yes? So part of it is just simply asking, God, what do you want me to do with my stuff right now, okay? But it's bigger than that, right? It's bigger than that. So what about your health? If everything that we have is a gift, what about your body, right? God, what do you want me to do? Like, am I leveraging this well? Am I taking care of this? Are my kids going to have me tomorrow, depending on how I'm living today, right? What am I doing with the life that I have? What about your mind, your energy, your time, your emotional health, your resources, your gifts, right? Think about it for a moment. You have so much time in a week. Are you spending it in the way that Jesus wants, right? Hey, it's not my time. Hey, Jesus, what are you going to do with your time? I realize some of this is radical for some of us, and that's okay. Let it stretch you. Let it be bigger than that. Can I trust Jesus to manage my time better than I manage my time? Probably, given the fact that I watched 2 episodes of Walking Dead last night, right? How do I do this? And so, what is it for you? Now, listen, all of you, every one of you are gifts, and you have gifts. And I'm already getting to my second point, but I got to tell you now that you have things to bring to the table when it comes to investing in people around you. Are you using it for what matters most and what lasts forever? Okay. The first thing, we're managers, not owners. Second point, everyone has something of significance. Let me hear you. Listen. Everyone in the room and that you come face to face with this week has something of significance. Let me show you, verse 15. To one, he gave 5 talents. To another, he gave 2. And then the last one, he gave 1, each according to his ability. Now, I told you earlier, the talent is a measure of money, okay? Which we don't have any of those right now. But just to give you perspective, at first you look at that one guy and you're like, oh, bummer, he only got 1 talent. Poor guy. No, listen, a talent today would be worth roughly $1.4 million. That's a lot of zeros. in case you're wondering, sign me up for half a talent, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, I'll be the half talent guy if you want me to be. Like, we read that and we're like, oh, poor guy. No, did the guy with 5 get a lot? Oh, yeah, that was a lot. But did the guy with 1 not get a lot? No way, dude. That's still 1.4, man. Sign me up. I'll be the 1 talent guy all day long. Everyone has something of significance. Now, to give the bigger picture, right, Jesus is telling a story about our lives. And so he has given you things. If this life is a gift, hear me on this. You are a gift. Just sitting in the room, heart beating, breathing air. You are a gift because you were created in the image of God. And not only are you a gift, you are gifted. You are who you are. There's not another one of you on the planet. Everyone in the room is a 10 at something. No one is a 10 at everything. That's why we need each other. And he's reminding us, not only are we managers, not owners, but we have something of significance to give. And some of you show up and you're like, man, I don't know what difference I can make in the world around me. I'm telling you, God made you to make a difference. And he's put you in spaces and places and given you talents and gifts to do that very thing. You're going to do things I could never do, and that your neighbor sitting next to you could never do. You have relationships right now in your life that I will never be able to touch. And that's okay, because God put you there instead of me. You are gifted. Let me give you some perspective. Jesus, talking to his followers, he looked at them in the eye and he says, hey, there's no greater demonstration of love than that someone would lay down his life for his friends. And part of it he's talking about what he's about to do for the world. He says, no greater demonstration of love than that someone would lay down his life for his friends. But then he looks them in the eye, and he says, hey, you should do the same for each other. So let me redefine what Jesus is saying. The greatest gift that you can give the world around you is yourself. The greatest gift that you can give the world around you is you. God created you to give yourself away in a positive way. Another way Jesus said it is love one another. Right? Like, oh my God, that's so amazing. So let me ask you a question. How do you know something is valuable? By the price that someone is willing to pay for it. And Jesus marked the value on every individual on the planet when he gave his life for you and me. So whether someone's a follower of Jesus or not, they're valuable because Jesus gave his life for all of us. And if we're going to invest in the things that last forever, there's only a few things that fall into that category, and it's you and me. Now, let me back up for just a second and let me help you. If you're not a follower of Jesus in the room, you were created to be a gift, but to see that gift fully realized, you first need to receive the gift that God has for you. Before God invites us to give ourselves away, he invites us to receive what he has given, right? So that the motivation is right. So that we don't end up with empty buckets and burnt out and frustrated and bitter because we kept giving ourselves away and no one reciprocated. But when you receive the love of God, there's nothing on this planet that compares. And it's everything that you need to be everything God has called you to be. And we receive that by trusting in Jesus, that when he gave his life, that declared your value in that moment. When we ask him, Jesus, I trust you that when you died for me, you died in my place. I trust you that when you were buried, you didn't stay there, you got up again. You proved that you were God, and you can give me new life. Jesus, I trust you that you're God, and you can make me new. And if you have never had a moment in your life where you have received the gift of God to be made completely new and to be forgiven of sin, I want you to know Jesus paid for all of it. We do nothing. We simply receive what he has done in our place. It's an incredible, incredible invitation. And the incredible part of this conversation is if you've already received the gift, right, it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Like, you can't help but keep it to yourself because this gift wasn't just for you. So I got to share this gift with others. Here's the last point, verse 27. It'll be there. We are called to multiply, not to maintain. Here's the last point. We are called to multiply our lives, not maintain the lives that we have. Let me show you in verse 27. But his master, coming back to the guy with the 1, right, came back and he said, you wicked and lazy servant. Some strong language, right? Like, I haven't ever called someone wicked. I call some people lazy, I guess. But, like, you're so wicked. Like, that's normally a good word in my vocabulary. So we got to appropriate this, right? He said, you wicked and lazy servant. There's some strong emotion here, right? You see how upset the master is? Right? This is really important. Catch the emotion. You should have invested my money with the bankers. And at my coming, I should have received what was mine with interest. What's Jesus saying here? Jesus takes tomorrow seriously. Because the only reason tomorrow matters is because people matter. And Jesus takes people seriously. Jesus takes the way we invest our lives seriously. And so should we. He's warning us, guys. This is a warning. What's he saying? You only get one chance at this. You and I only get this one life. We only get this one season. Think about it. You only get this 1 week coming up. You only get tomorrow literally once. You only get this next season, where you live, where you work, where you play, right? You might move somewhere else or get a different job, or life circumstances change. You only get the seasons that you're at CU right now. You only have this semester with the people that are in your class right now. You only get the lunches this week at CU right now. You only get the coworkers that you have right now, right? You don't know how many tomorrows you get in this thing. And he's saying, hey, you missed it. I gave you something to invest and you failed to do it. Right? What is he talking about? Think bigger picture. It's your life. We get to the end of our lives and say, look, I held on to me. I got me to show for it. I was comfortable. I was happy. I got everything I wanted. I got the job that I wanted and the stuff that I wanted and the house that I wanted. But I got no people to show for it. And he's inviting us to take the weight of our today and invest it into the people around us. After that, he says, hey, if you don't lose it, or if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think it's literal. Like, there's people around us right now that God has put in our path to love and serve and invest in. If we don't use it, we might lose it. And I think the encouragement is, hey, can we love people enough not to lose it? You're like, man, I don't know. Where does that love come from? It only comes from God. Guys, in and of myself, I don't have the capacity to love my neighbors the way that God wants me to. It's only the relationship of God working in and through me that I can truly settle on the reality that tomorrow matters and live like it today. And so my encouragement for you and I today is, let's not let the distraction of instant gratification, and let's not let the distractions around us rob us of the impact and joy of making small, consistent investments in those around us over time. Right? You might not see the result of your investment tomorrow, but you can bank on the reality that it matters today. And so here's what I want for you and me. When we recognize that tomorrow matters, it will change the way that we live today. And the only reason that tomorrow matters is because people matter. And so I want you to think with me, the best investment that Jesus ever made outside of giving his life for the world, the best investment Jesus ever made was in the men and women around him. We're the benefactors of that investment. Think about your life for just a moment. All the stuff you've experienced, all the events, the most valuable and important investments that you've ever received in your life are from people. The most painful events in your life are probably because someone didn't invest like they should. Or someone invested something that wasn't sourced in the love of God. And it's as simple as the words that we speak. Everyone in the room has been damaged by someone's poor choice of words when they invested in us. And hopefully, at least one time in your life, if not right now, everyone in the room has been invested with positive words that made a difference in their lives. And so what I want for you and I is to take a step back and say, okay, God, I'm a manager, not an owner, and I know I'm gifted to do something. What do you want? Like, I want this thing to multiply. I don't want my life to only be me at the end of it. I want you to use me to make a difference in the lives around me. And my prayer is that you would invest in such a way, starting today, that you would be rich tomorrow in the relationships and the treasure that Jesus has talked about. That you would be rich in what matters most. That you would be rich in what lasts forever. And so it looks like this, that you would invest in your marriage in such a way today that it would be rich in intimacy tomorrow. that you would invest in friends in such a way today that you would be rich in spiritual community tomorrow, people around you who love you and love Jesus and would lay their lives down for you, that you would be rich with that kind of community, that you would invest in your kids in such a way today that tomorrow you be rich with a relationship with your kids who not only love you, but they love Jesus. That you would invest in your church in such a way starting today that you realize, man, I don't just go to church, I am the church. Jesus didn't call me to live for me. He invited me into community and has called me to the world around me. That you start to realize that church is not a building that we sit in, it's who we are collectively together, and God is doing something bigger in and through me than I could have ever imagined. And that you would have the confidence that when you pour your time, your energy, your resources into the church, that the byproduct is something bigger than you could have ever imagined. There's a conversation that we have in our city groups. I'm going to invite you to apply it today. We call it the 3 VIPs. And it's 3 very important people. And I want you to think right now, just in the sphere of influence that you have in your life around you, I want you to identify in your mind 3 very important people. 3 people who are either disconnected from church or disconnected from any kind of spirituality, or they're not Christians, whatever it might be. 3 people that God has put in your life right now. The first step is to identify who they are. The second step is to start investing in them. Right, based on today, if I'm a manager, not an owner, you start to look, all right, hey, can I have them over for dinner? Can I go to coffee with my coworker? Can I have lunch with them? Or, can we go to a play date with their kids? Or, you start looking for opportunities of investment. Go hiking with a friend, throw a barbecue for your neighborhood, whatever. Just get crazy, right? Like one time I mowed my neighbor's yard that I didn't know just to be able to serve him, to start a conversation. Like he looked out the window and I'm like, hey, and it was really weird. I probably wouldn't do that, but whatever it takes to invest in someone, start today. Identify your 3 VIPs, start investing in them, and listen, when God opens up a door, because he will, you have the opportunity to invite them. And honestly, listen, I want to encourage you to invite them to City Church. Why not? Like, man, what if they don't like it? Well, why not? People tell me no all the time. It's okay. I'm still going to love them and serve them. But let me remind you of this. The goal is not to get your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers to City Church. The goal is to get them to Jesus. And so if they can meet Jesus through a Sunday gathering, awesome. If they'll never walk through these doors, then they can probably meet Jesus at your kitchen table just as well. And just like Bella's friend, living and loving in such a way that she could see Jesus working through him, I want you to know you have the same capacity this week to identify, invest, and invite. And so would you do that for me? Would you identify 3 VIPs right now in your heart and mind that you can start investing in? Jesus is the only one who can make heaven more crowded. Our goal is just to point people to him. Can I pray for you? Will you bow your heads with me? God, I'm really grateful for the time that we've had. I'm grateful for your love for us. I'm grateful that it motivates us, that we get to receive that love and then give that love freely. And man, right now I pray wherever it is that you put your finger on our hearts and minds that we should be investing better. Man, I know it's for me, God, you've been challenging me in the way that I invest in my marriage and in my kids and over again in the world around me. But would you do that for us right now? God, wherever we're not managing well, would you help us to change? So give it to you and ask you what you want us to do with it. And right now, would you break our hearts for our 3 VIPs, people that you love, people that you died for, and people that you invite us to do the same for? Would you put them on our hearts and minds, and would you help us to start investing in them, whatever that means? And God, if you give us an opportunity to invite them to City Church or our kitchen table, that we would love them enough to do that. And God, I pray that you would show up in such a way and we see some huge wins and huge success when it comes to loving and serving well. And I pray for anybody in the room who needs to be encouraged today that they're reminded that they're created by you. In your image, they're gifted, they're a gift, and they're created for you. And I pray for any of my friends in the room right now who have never made a decision to follow Jesus, that right now in their own heart and soul, in the privacy of this moment, they would take a moment right now and say, Jesus, I believe in you. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose again, and I want a relationship with you starting now. And God, would they have the confidence right now, if they can pray that on their own heart and mind, that you forgive them, you make them new. They're adopted in the family of God. They're a part of this family. And God, you have so much more for them starting with this relationship. So God, we give it all to you, asking for your help this week, that we can remember that tomorrow really does matter and we would live like it today. It's in Jesus' name, amen.